All right, welcome to Contracting Conversations. I'm Jim Valley, and I'm with my co-host, Scott Williams. We have Kelly Kernan with us today. Kelly, welcome to Contracting Conversations.
Thanks, Jim. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Great. So we're glad to have you with us. DAU Professor Kelly Kernan has a big task of clarifying contracting cybersecurity for DAU and the acquisition workforce.
Yep, that's right, Jim. I love getting the word out about cybersecurity and contracts to contracting teams, PM teams, and everybody who's involved.
So Kelly, I just want to introduce a little about yourself because I am amazed by your background. So you served as a NASA engineer, an Air Force scientist, a military pilot, and a cybersecurity professional, and you have worked in industry and assigned to the Navy in FY23. Graduated from the Air Force Academy and served in the Air Force where you received the Air Medal. I'm very impressed.
Oh, well, thanks, Jim. I'm just, again, so glad I can be here with you today. I hope we can clear up a few things and have a little fun while we're at it.
Great. Scott, you want to take over?
Absolutely. Yes, welcome, Kelly. So I have to admit cybersecurity is one of those elusive aspects of contracting where I rely on precedents. So help us break through the mystery and really understand how to approach cybersecurity in contracting.
Sure, Scott. It's going to be a great day. Let's tackle this cybersecurity in the next 10 minutes and bring everybody up to speed on how to approach cybersecurity and contracting. When it comes to cybersecurity, it's all about the data and the network it's on. And then we move on to the amount of risk we're willing to take with that data and network in order to protect our vital DoD supply chain. Cybersecurity encompasses three aspects of data protection: data confidentiality, data integrity, and data accessibility. We have links to resource information where you can learn more about the protection triad of data security.
Great. And Kelly, there are so many types of data in the DoD. How do we sort them all out?
Scott, let's talk about data in the unclassified realm. Let's start with the data that every contract has, which is Federal Contracting Information, or FCI. Federal Contracting Information is all that information about a federal contract which is not meant to become public. The information which is meant to become public can be found on SAM.gov. FCI is then the contract documents themselves and most of the email exchanges between the contractor and the contracting team. And there may be other FCI documents or FCI exchanges that are not meant to become public.
And Kelly, I know you're going to talk about everybody's favorite, which is CUI.
Right. And then we have Controlled Unclassified Information, or CUI, which must be protected in the form of safeguarding or dissemination controls, and protection of CUI is outlined by NIST standards. CUI must be marked as CUI, and further, it's often subject to dissemination controls. Why? Why all this fuss about unclassified information? Well, if you aggregate enough unclassified information, you might be able to create a collection of data that can tell a classified story, and we would definitely want to keep that out of the hands of cyber criminals and our adversaries.
All right, thanks, Kelly. So every contract handles FCI, but how do we make it known if a contract handles CUI?
Jim, that's a great question. We have many contractors walking around today wondering if their contracts provide or generate CUI. DoD contracting teams are required by the DoD Instruction 5200.48 in Section 5.3 to identify whether the contract provides or generates CUI via the contracting vehicle, and to articulate any required protective measures or dissemination controls in the contract, grant, or other legal document. So let me clarify that last part. The DoD will tell contractors how to mark any CUI they generate as part of a contract. Jim, these requirements run parallel to the DFARS, but you can see that we must set boundaries at the start of the contract and solicitation. So in summary, it's not enough to simply put the DFARS 252-204-7012 in a contract or solicitation and let that be all that is said about CUI. That DOTI 5248 requires even more information be provided to the contractor.
Great, Kelly. And that brings up the marking of CUI, which again can be very confusing.
Scott, the bottom line is to mark it and protect it, CUI, via encryption. But how to understand what data we work with is CUI is the first step. So if you're going to mark CUI, you need to know which category of CUI it is. And I've been studying this for years and years in the DoD, and the only way I've found to get your arms around the categories of CUI is to review all 100 plus categories of CUI for awareness. So pour yourself a tall cup of coffee and sit down for a good read. There are many ways to review the various categories of CUI. You can review them at the National Archives CUI Categories website, which we'll link below, or you can review them as a part of the DoD CUI program at dodcui.mil. Review the list and take notes of those categories that intersect your work. And once you are familiar with the categories of CUI, the official CUI training will make more sense. We have our federal CUI training, which is actually available to anyone, and that will be linked below. And then the DoD has created its own training for the DoD CUI program. And of course, DAU has courses and webinars on CUI. More about training in a few minutes.
Okay, Kelly. Now we know how to sort out what is CUI and how to mark it, but how do we protect it?
Scott, when it comes to contracting, it's the DFARS 252-204-7012, which tells us that the definition of adequate security for the protection of controlled unclassified information is the implementation of the NIST standard, NIST SP 800-171. What we need to know about that standard is that NIST SP 800-171 is a comprehensive, sophisticated, integrated cybersecurity standard which will be costly to implement. And further, it was written by cyber engineers for cyber engineers. And that fact necessitates that contractors will need the services of a cybersecurity professional in order to create a compliant, non-federal information system for the purpose of protecting controlled and classified information. And it's vital to protect our DoD controlled and classified information, and there is no way around utilizing a cybersecurity professional to get the job done.
All right, thanks, Kelly. That's kind of scary from a contracting professional, so I'm looking forward to hearing how we go about doing that. So how do we know if the protections are in place?
Well, Jim, I like to say we have 5 lines of defense for protecting DoD CUI. We have the DoD instructions, the Federal Acquisition Regulations, the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplements, training, and our very important DoD Information Protection Offices. We have the DoD instructions to federal contracting teams that we already talked about. This will ensure that contractors are aware if their contract provides or generates CUI before it begins, and if the contract generates CUI, the contractors will be told how to mark it, and there are clear marking instructions. For federal contracting information only, so we're talking your vendors and suppliers, every contract since 2013 has contained the FAR 5220421, which is instruction to implement 15 very basic cybersecurity controls to keep federal contracting information from becoming public. For contracts which generate or are provided controlled and classified information, we have the DFARS 252-204-7012, which requires the implementation of NIST SP 800-171 in order to provide adequate security for controlled unclassified information on a non-federal information system or organization. There also applies the DFARS Clause 252-204-7019 and 252-204-7020, which require a self-assessment of a contractor's NIST SP 800-171 implementation and putting the resultant self-assessment score into the Supplier Performance Risk System, or what everybody calls SPRS. And in the summer of 2025, we will see a new DFARS, which will make a requirement of the new Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Program from the DoD CIO. These are just a few of the FAR and DFARS which call for the protection and safeguarding of FCI and CUI in DoD contracts. We'll go more in depth in the next podcast.
So Kelly, just let us know, where is the official training on these topics?
Sure, Jim. In order to protect our DoD data, we've also talked about the training. And the official training is available at www.cdse.edu. And of course, our training that's available at www.dodcui.mil, as well as the best practice of reviewing all the CUI categories for awareness and taking note of which ones affect your work and contracts, and then digging deep into those CUI categories you work with. And if that gets confusing, every federal office is associated with an information protection office. That office might be at the wing or brigade level, but we all have one we can call on. Your division or group will have an information protection team to help you, the contracting team, with identifying, marking, and protecting controlled unclassified information.
I tell you, that really is a lot of support to contracting teams, especially when they're not as knowledgeable right now.
Yes, again, like I say, we have those 5 lines of defense for DoD data. The DoDs, the FARs, the DFARs are really great training and are vital information protection offices that we all can call on.
And Kelly, I know your team at DAU can certainly help.
That's right, Scott. DAU has many cybersecurity courses for the federal acquisition workforce and webinars, which are public events that you can find at dau.edu/events. We have webinars from the DAU Cyber Solutions programs on subjects such as protecting CUI, where to begin with NIST SP 800-171, DoD cyber incident reporting procedures, and supply chain risk management and contracts, which is coming in December. All webinars are either recorded or coming up soon.
All right, Kelly, so it sounds like you're kind of on the forefront of getting that information out, and so we're glad to have you. I feel like we've been into a master class, and I know this is going to be a series for those out there, and we're going to go dive deeper. So I can't wait for the next podcast to learn even more about protecting FCI and CUI and contracts.
Jim, it was my pleasure to talk with you and Scott today, and I look forward to our next podcast. On the next podcast, we'll go a bit deeper and gain a working knowledge of cybersecurity and DoD contracts by reviewing in detail those FAR, DFARS, and DoDs.
All right, Kelly, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. And as I mentioned, this is going to be a series. We think it's very important that the contracting people at least understand what is coming down the pike so they can kind of prepare for that. So that's why we have you on.
Happy to be here. Looking forward to the next one.
Great. So for those out there, please, if you like our podcast, smash the like button And understand that we are not just on DoD Media, and you can sign up there. You can also sign up on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. And we look forward to having future contracting conversations with you.